How's it going, guys? What a fantastic episode to present you with today. I'm so excited to show you this episode. It's a really good one with Sumedha Rai, absolute AI expert. You're going to learn loads from this one. Incredible guests like this person today are brought on the show by the incredible subscriber base who hit the follow button or the subscribe button and support the show by sharing it around and making this platform super beneficial for these people to come on and share their time with us. I'm going to ask you if you can do the same today. If you're new here, please do hit the subscribe button, leave a follow, leave a rating, leave a comment, leave a like. Any of those great things really help a tremendous amount. And if you want to support the show just a little bit more and you really found this beneficial, check out my book, 150 Secrets to Greatness. It takes 30 really good episodes from the podcast and turns them into their 5 key takeaways from each of those ones, creating 150 total secrets to greatness and 30 bite-sized chapters you can absorb each day and learn loads from. So, guys, as for now, I'm going to take you over to this fantastic episode. See you there and enjoy. So, Sumedha, how are you doing today? Welcome to the show. Honored to have you here.
Thank you so much, Louis. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. And one of those really great topics and subjects that I'm super passionate about, AI. I used it today, I used it yesterday, used it the day before that. It's become so prevalent, and you're an absolute expert in the field. So I can't wait to ask some really great questions about all of it. I know it's going to be a lot more interesting than just talking about your general chat GPT, that's for sure. But just so we can get everyone on the same page here and everything, so we all know who you are, just that elevator pitch, really, of just kind of 1 to 2 minutes roughly of just who you are, what your kind of day job looks like, and a little snapshot into the life of you. Then we're going to dig into those questions. So, yeah, fire away.
Sounds good. So a little bit about myself. I am an AI researcher and machine learning scientist, and I'm based in New York City. I have over a decade of experience in transforming somewhat complex problems and concepts into practical, ethical, and high impact solutions for some really cool industries like fintech, healthcare, and data policy. Personally, I like to explore AI through a lot of lenses. So on any given day, I'm doing a lot of things AI. But as for my day job, currently I'm working with a micro investments firm where I'm responsible for creating anti-fraud models using artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I also lead all efforts related to natural language processing, which now a lot of people might know is an AI concept that powers large language models such as ChatGPT. And in my work, what I'm uniquely trying to do is to combine academic research that is cutting edge and state of the art with some really critical industry problems so that I can bridge the gap that sometimes appears between the two and get the best of both worlds. I love writing about data science and AI, and I'm grateful that my work has been published in some really good journals and publications. And I also love having conversations about this technology and the world of data. So I frequently go and try to present my work at international AI conferences or meetups or host hackathons for people to understand how to really get their hands dirty. And that's another reason why I'm very excited to be here and talk to you about everything AI.
It's wicked. I mean, you've had such a successful career, and the work you're doing right now, you can just tell it's all going in that direction where AI is going to become such a massive part of society, not just, I mean, it already is, but it's just going to keep going. And the people who I've spoken to already about AI in this and the industry, they're all saying that, Pandora's box is open now. It's going to be here. It just depends how well we can do within all of it and use that, to our advantage and keep it ethical and stuff. So there's so much to talk around the whole thing. But obviously, what you mentioned about fintech and healthcare and stuff and anti-fraud, those are the really interesting ones that I'd love to dig into. But I got to ask, normal show tradition, but just because I'm so curious, how did you get here? So, kind of, what's your backstory, I guess? What led you to where you are today, and kind of what's inspired you to pursue the artificial intelligence route? And I guess if you can lace into it, what was your first AI experience? When did you first notice it coming onto the scene? And how did you know you wanted to create a career around it?
Oh my God, this is actually one of my favorite questions, specifically something that you asked about. How did you notice? When did you notice? And I remember that moment because I didn't technically start in tech. I wasn't a computer science graduate, and I studied something very different in my undergraduate college. I majored in economics, actually. So my tech background actually came from 4 years of high school programming, and I was learning Java and computer science with C++. And at that time, I loved the logic behind programming and computer systems, and I even tried to set up my own Raspberry Pi at one point, and these were all like cool things that I was trying to do, but it wasn't really something that I did in my undergraduate studies. I pivoted and I majored in economics, and my first master's was actually in finance. So I stepped into investment banking and private equity right after it. And I remember that the domain that I was covering was actually tech. So the fun part for me was to meet up with these startup founders and these people who were trying to raise funds for their companies. And I would be asking them really technical questions. Like we're sitting in a meeting and I'm asking them things like, so where is this being powered? Like what's your storage space, or what's the algorithm that's running behind this? And how many data points did you really have to use to come to this level of accuracy? And I just realized that that was the fun part for me. So it was during this stint at a private equity firm that I started realizing that going to the technical part of the products that these guys were building is what was giving me a lot of joy. So I thought, okay, like this is something that I have to try out. And I made it a full-time job. So I stepped into data policy and AI. Again, I had majored in finance and economics. So for me to work with a central bank in the data policy domain made a lot of sense. And I loved it there. The world of AI was heating up. We were doing analysis, which were data driven. We were talking to monetary policy committees, and we were informing their decisions using our data driven research. And I loved it. And I thought, okay, I want to do it at a more, formalized level. So I started with my second master's in artificial intelligence and data science, and I kept working on the side. So I worked with some retail companies in finance. I worked with quant firms and hedge funds in their quant research departments. And this was all to really understand what part of AI do I really like. So, in my current role, I love being a part of the NLP team, and I love leading projects related to text analysis. And at the same time, I make sure that I'm collaborating with researchers, and I've been doing that since my grad school days. So, my experience from the last 10 years or so basically just came together beautifully because I became very comfortable with the domains that I was already working in, economics and finance. So that jargon to me did not feel uncomfortable. Whereas I went from this advisory financial role to actually building the financial products. And it was all really fun for me to see it from both sides of the table. And I love the work that I do right now, primarily because of my experience in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can see how those first things you did then laid the groundwork for being able to be an expert and figure out everything
Yeah.
you're doing further on from there. Definitely makes a complete sense now how that career has kind of spanned from that starting point and then gone into where you are there. But obviously, kind of looking at the work that you've done, let's kind of dig into it a little bit now then. So it spans, as you mentioned, fintech, healthcare, policy. I guess the kind of burning questions people are asking are how is AI affecting all of these things then? So you mentioned obviously there like fraud detection and stuff, but in terms of like healthcare, policy and stuff, how do you kind of see AI transforming these industries right now? What excites you the most about the changes within them?
Right. I think I already touched upon fintech a little bit. Fraud detection is becoming a very powerful tool using AI and machine learning algorithms. Understanding your customer is another domain within finance, which is actually not really a domain specific thing, but really understanding your customer in retail, healthcare as well. Understanding your patients or understanding the end customer is really important. But specifically in terms of the medical domain, I would say radiology and medical imaging has seen a lot of transformation. So the computer vision models that we have today are very powerful. Now, in critical industries such as healthcare or fintech, the margin of error should be as low as possible. And there are times when, as humans, we are doing a task repetitively, and with the kind of repetition that is required to do certain tasks, sometimes we get tired and we are more prone to errors, or we don't have the time to go through as much data as possible. But for a computer vision model or for a machine learning model to be able to go through what we would take days to go through it's a really cool thing to implement because we reduce the time and the margin of error to a fraction of what it used to be before. And it's something that frees up a lot of time for us to think about the hard problems. So, for instance, I'd like to say that the AI technology that we're using right now is really an assistant for you to make the more expert decisions. When it comes to disease detection, for instance, if you're looking at an image, an AI model might be able to mark everything that looks suspicious. And then you, as an expert practitioner, can decide what needs to be done after that. So this part of running through a model to make sure that everything is captured is very critical in the medical domain. I really like the idea of drug discovery. We used to take a lot of time mixing things up, and now we can run these simulations to make sure that we try out the top 10 of these and not like thousands of these, because an AI model is going to tell us that in the medical domain, based on certain things or certain features that we've already fed it, these top 10 things are going to make a lot of sense in terms of the drug that you're trying to create. And so drug discovery is being transformed. Another thing that I love is smart wearables. After a certain age, a fall can mean the difference between life and death. And now you have smart wearables where AI can actually detect a fall and inform the right people. So I'm really excited about these changes that are happening in the medical domain. In data policy, there's this really cool project that I was working on some time back. That is basically what the project does is it creates high frequency data for low frequency metrics. So there are times when we're looking at the economy as a whole, and we need to look at GDP, unemployment, or inflation metrics. But these metrics are things that take time to get released as official numbers. It might take a government a quarter, or sometimes it might take like official entities a month, or maybe 2 quarters or something. And then even after a quarter, there is a little bit of time when it's officially released to the public. In this time that has passed, you need to be able to understand what's happening to the economy as a decision maker. So since we understand how, say, a consumer price inflation metric is made, we can recreate this data on a daily basis, every single day. And we can then recreate the consumer price inflation metric every single day. And that is going to really inform us to make the decisions daily instead of waiting for the official results to come out every quarter. The New York Fed actually does something like this. It's called nowcasting. And I thought that was a really cool solution that they came up with, especially for economic activity. And so data policy is being informed by these models. In terms of just what are some of the things that I'm excited about in the world of AI? I feel like we're, as a society, trying to create better data. So our models, as you know, require billions and trillions of data points to be trained on. And the definition of large has evolved over time. When the first transformer model came out, the definition of large was millions of parameters, and the large language models today, such as ChatGPT, they've been trained on billions of parameters. So the definition of like this word large has actually really evolved in terms of what it means to AI. Now, we're really trying to generate good data. By good data, I mean data that is unbiased, data that is representative, data that is ethically nice. So these AI machine learning models are forcing us to answer these questions now. Like when you're trying to create a good model, you want good data. So you go back to the process and say, if I'm trying to collect good data, what does it mean to be right? What does it mean to be fair? What does it mean to be ethical? And that's where the process starts. So I'm really excited to see that as a society, the machine learning models are pushing us in a direction that we want to achieve. And these were some of the things that we, probably thought about it, but we did not have to quantify them. Now we have to quantify them. It's a really exciting avenue for me to think about and even work in the future.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and I've got a follow-up question to this too, but I've wanted to share a couple of my experiences with ChatGPT recently, which I thought were really interesting, because I think one of the things that I've noticed within business too is that sometimes people are limited by their imagination. So sometimes when you're presented with a tool, its capability is sometimes dictated by just how much you can imagine doing with that kind of a thing. So if you have chat GPT, and you can only think of write me a YouTube description or a blog post or something, then that's probably the extent of what you're going to get out of it. But a couple of experiences recently. So my car had a bit of a breakdown, and there was this clamp on one of the hoses. And I didn't know what it was exactly, what it was called, or how to take it off, basically. So I snapped a picture of it, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and it told me everything I need to know. So I didn't know the name of it, and it was able to identify what it was and what I needed, and links to all of the tools to take it off. And then recently, as you know, I was poorly. I won't go into too much detail, but I was able to submit a couple of photos of some of the things that were wrong. And it gave me a full medical rundown of what it was, some of the improvement and things I need to do to make it better. So it's almost like you've got this everything kind of advisor in your pocket, basically. But I think the follow on from what you were talking about there within healthcare, I wanted to ask you about too, is that ChatGPT does get things wrong. So in something like healthcare, as you mentioned, obviously, there's human error, there's human fatigue and stuff, which is a massive factor within errors and problems within healthcare and stuff. But obviously AI can still do the same thing too and still have problems. So I guess, how does that look within kind of like creation of new drugs and everything? How are we kind of like preventing it making mistakes or identifying when those mistakes are made? And how safe is it for it to be kind of in charge of, I guess, the future of drugs, medicine, and healthcare?
Right. This is a very important question to address right now. And as you mentioned, the thing that you were mentioning, I'm really excited about it too, the multimodal nature of large language models right now. They're able to ingest text, image, data, audio, and now we're getting to a point where it can interact with you not only using text, but also like audio or generate images for you. So it's going from all the input formats to all the output formats. And it's really a cool thing to look at, to use. But again, as you said, this should be used to inform you, to assist you. Now, in critical domains like healthcare or even fintech, AI should be used very carefully to assist a person in tandem with an expert. So I would never say that if you were to give out a loan to someone, that decision should be made by an automated AI machine learning algorithm, because there has to be a human in the loop. Similarly, for medical and healthcare related things, your dependence on these models should not go to an extent where you just blindly start consuming whatever it is saying as the truth. And it's been known to lie. It's been known to lie because if you really understand how these models have been trained, they've been trained on language. And that language has been picked up from a lot of domains. So that means that I showed the model a lot of data related to medicine. I showed it a lot of data related to finance, related to journalism, related to arts. And it understood the language using all of this data because, our data is actually produced in a lot of different industries. Now, the model understands semantics, so it's able to talk to you in a very grammatically correct way. And you feel like it's saying the right thing. But facts is not what it's, supposed to produce. It can produce language for you. The language may be informed by facts. So that means if you were to give it a picture of, say, like an automotive part or something, it will be able to pick it up because it's already seen it. But that does not mean that if you ask it to create an imaginary car, it's not going to be able to do it because it can generate things that do not exist. And that's a very critical part for us to understand, that a model can hallucinate. It can literally lie to your face because it knows how to talk to you in a language that you feel comfortable with, and you feel, oh, a machine is actually coming up with these really nice sentences, this might be the truth. So never in a medical domain or in a healthcare setting can you trust the outcome of these models without actually getting in touch with an AI practitioner, with a healthcare practitioner, sorry. So the knowledge that a doctor or a nurse has been trained on, it's not just taken from the books or papers. It is taken from experience. And we are not at a point where this can be replaced with just textbook knowledge. So, for instance, one of the bigger things that is different between a machine and between a human is that we learn things very fast using very few cases. So for instance, if you were to see 2 or 3 cases of, say, a dog picture, you will be able to understand that a picture that I showed you is a dog, a cat, or like something else altogether. But a machine is mandated to do a certain set of things using thousands and thousands of examples. Now, when it comes to healthcare, a machine has seen a lot of data, but it has not been able to extract things from the experience of a doctor. And things like, touch or seeing the color of something or seeing the behavior of a patient or seeing a lot of macro circumstances around the patient. These are things that we haven't actually been able to feed to a model right now. We're really not there yet. So it has to be a very, very standard understanding that you can use it to inform yourself, but you cannot use it to make medical decisions. You have to get in touch with a medical practitioner who's an expert in the field, who has been able to gather the experience over years and years of training. And you can, of course, like take a lot of output that's coming from an AI model and go to a doctor with those things. But the ultimate decision making should be resting with an expert in the field.
Makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I think one of the kind of parallels I almost want to draw with what at least I feel within AI and kind of how it's all developing right now and stuff, and the things I'm hearing about it is, if we look back in history and stuff, when we look at the Cold War, for example, and the space race and these times like that, where there was a massive demand for innovation within a certain industry because of a greater need. So whether that's war or whether that is finances, like something exciting comes out, then it's kind of a race for everyone to create the best next thing. And sometimes steps and measures maybe get skipped to try and help almost industry essentially to further along that progress, maybe too fast too soon. So I was wondering if we could get your thoughts really on how are we doing in terms of managing this thing. So are we kind of progressing at a rate that you think is maybe too quick, or do you think we're doing it at just the right pace right now that is kind of under management and sustainable, and it's not going to get too far ahead too soon and skip some of the necessary parts we need to make it safe? Or is it maybe a little bit too quick? What do you think?
Um, I think both of these things are happening depending upon the industry that you pick up. So in certain industries, the innovation has not gone hand in hand with the guardrails that should have been in place for certain models. And this is one of the reasons why it's so important to have these conversations about having a piece for bias detection, having a piece for security protocols in your entire pipeline. And that's something a lot of companies or firms are actually not doing while deploying their AI models. So we're already at a place where innovation is not going hand in hand with guardrails. At the same time, there's this, thought process that you can't always stifle innovation by prohibiting certain things. So I think as a country and as a research community as a whole across countries, we're actually finding that we're trying to find that balance. So for instance, in Europe, the data laws or data privacy laws are a lot more strict as compared to the US. And in certain countries, they do not exist at all. So we're coming up with these new policies, new ways to contain the results of AI models as to how they really affect the human beings, while the innovation is happening in certain places. So it's almost like a chicken and egg problem. We do not understand what the problem will be unless the problem presents itself. And then that's when we start making policies about it. But at the same time, the problem is already in existence. So
Yeah.
now we're just basically trying to catch up with the problem. I think there is going to be an equilibrium that will reach at a certain point. We're going to find this like point of stability. I don't think we've reached that place right now. I don't think we've reached a point where we know exactly what to apply and it has to be done or it does not have to be done in certain industries and certain use cases in certain countries. And we're still exploring that. I want to say I'm cautiously optimistic towards that future. I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, um, as consumers of the AI models, you have to be very alert about what it might produce, because there are certain models that are black box models. You will not really understand what's happening inside it. And so you don't want to use it for use cases where explainability is very important. So for instance, as I mentioned before, if you have to, assign, this is a hypothetical problem. If you had to assign someone a credit score that could be used for something really significant later, you don't want that credit score to come out of a black box model where you can't really explain what happened and it just spit out a credit score for a user, for a consumer. You want to make sure that at every point you understand your model and you understand why a certain decision was made. So in this case, explainability is very important, and having those security protocols, having those guardrails is much more important than maybe creating a spam filter where it's just
Yeah.
saying this is an important email and this is not an important email. Here you can really use a very accurate predictive model, and maybe having a black box model is just okay in this case.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think one of the things that I really want to touch on as well in this podcast too is, again, I like to kind of use at least my experience with it too, because I don't know a crazy amount about this. I know a little bit, but I know my own experience with it all and stuff. And I know that since I've used Chat GPT, it has sped me up. So everything that took hours before, so whether that was writing an email or fact checking or doing YouTube descriptions or things like this, those tasks that would take ages, I know that it's sped me up a lot. And also as a learning tool as well. So within my personal training stuff as well, it's helped me learn stuff quicker. So if there's things I don't know, it's acted almost like a tutor. So you can ask it whatever you want. And I know it's sped me up. There was a video I saw the other day on Instagram. I think it's meant as a bit of a joke, really, but it was a young, I reckon he was Canadian, a young Canadian lad on a job interview with this guy, and the guy was like breathing down his throat through the Zoom call, kind of saying, "I want you to show me, yeah, screen share right now," because he wanted to see if this kid was using Chat GPT to kind of ace this interview and stuff. But it got me thinking as well, though. It's out there. We all know about it now. Everyone's using it and stuff too. But it's almost feels a little bit counter in my head. It feels a little bit counterproductive almost to sanction these things now. So I guess my question is, within business and within the school realm too, do you think that it's a good thing or a bad thing? Because in my opinion, if I was school right now, I'd be thinking, how can we actually empower kids to use this? Because it's going to help speed up their learning and they're going to become more effective in their industries and their jobs and stuff too, because they have this superpower on their side. And then businesses too. My employee is going to work at, 2.5 times the rate and get through 2.5 times more data each day because they have this on their side too. So do you think businesses and schools, for example, should be leaning into this more than they are right now? Or do you think we should be keeping it as a separate thing as well? So any thoughts there?
Of course, it's really funny that you mentioned it, because I was having a conversation with someone who works in the education sector, and he was mentioning the same thing, that there are so many people who are really apprehensive of this change that's going to come around, because, we have a certain format for tests, for writing, I don't know, papers, for instance, or for creating projects and stuff. And suddenly we see this tool that is able to do everything, and we're testing students in these things, and the format is just something that can be created by a machine. It's not going to really take this creative thinking that we're trying to make a child or a student learn. And they might find it very easy to come up with something within minutes rather than like days, that should have been the case in the first place. Now, I think that, much like, online stuff, this is a technology that is here to stay. So going back to the time that we were consuming knowledge out of books, and then suddenly everything became online, so we were not actually consuming from books one by one. We had access to everything on one screen. That was a big change. Like, people had to change the format of their tests. People had to change how learning is actually approached. And that is a change that should happen, because I think if a technology has so many upsides, it's not something that you should not use just because, there is going to be a clear change of format to certain standardized things. So I feel people need to understand the technology a little more, and especially in the education sector, find a way to positively integrate it. Now, the first time open tests were introduced, people were like, oh my God, it's like cheating. Everybody has access to all the books, all the resources that they need. But the point of that test was different. The point of the test was to think more creatively, to challenge someone to have all the resources at their disposal and answer the harder questions. And this is what we're going to be doing right now. Maybe the resources that we have right now are much more powerful. So that will push us to take advantage of these resources and think of solving the harder problems. So for instance, I heard someone say, I used to be so good at programming, and now I'm thinking, is that even a skill? That's true that if you were taking advantage of ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, programming is going to become faster, like so much faster. But at the same time, if you were deploying a model, you have to optimize it. You have to think of the right structure. You have to think of how this is going to be monitored. You have to think of what the data should look like when it goes into the model. These are the important questions that you have to answer right now. And honestly, if you did not have a very strong understanding of coding in the first place, there is a very high chance that, putting together chunks of code to create a deployable model is going to become a huge task. You're probably not going to be able to do it. So our approach to education will have to change. It is already changing, I feel. And I am a strong proponent of not being fearful of what it can do in a classroom setting. I mean, it can do a lot of positive things, so we concentrate on that. And at the same time, we also find ways to enable learning in a more creative fashion. And that's where, these conversations with different industries come into the picture. You talk to education experts, and then you talk to like tech experts, and they will be able to find ways to combine these two things together.
It's really interesting. I have to say, I do find it all really interesting. And I think what kind of I'm thinking along the lines of now and stuff too is if we think of education and exams and how people get measured and everything too, it's all based on just that person's intelligence and how much they've kind of swallowed the textbooks and how much they've thought about all of that too. And I suppose ChatGPT at the start was kind of like that dirty little secret that you had, and it was kind of like in your pocket all the time, and you were thinking, okay, if you're in the exam room, how can I sneak this in or whatever. But now if you look at it, it's not, ChatGPT isn't it now. It's Apple Intelligence, and then you do a Google search now and you get an AI overview, and it's in Snapchat at the very top. It's like a bot, so it's everywhere. You can't really avoid it now and everything. So it's there for everyone to use, and it just makes me wonder. Then, is one of those main factors of intelligence for people, or maybe kind of like effectiveness of work, or maybe even like IQ, do you think that one of those massive factors in the future is actually just going to be how well can people prompt AI and how well people can actually utilize AI as an actual measure of intelligence for themselves too? Because if everyone's going to be using it, then everyone's going to be benefiting from it and outputting content and doing exam results, and everyone's going to have this increase of quality. So what's going to separate people when they all have AI, I guess? What's going to make someone more intelligent than the next person? I imagine that's probably prompts and knowing how to use what's available to them better, right?
Uh, yes, I think this is one of those things which is actually becoming almost like a job description. I've seen it in the job descriptions, prompt engineering. I do agree that I'm in my head, I'm almost trying to equate it with Google search. And I remember when I used to research for a project, there were times that my peers would be able to come up with better terms to get better results, and they would get access to some resources or URLs that would only pop up because their search terms were so much better than mine. And I'm thinking of somewhat of the same thing with prompt engineering, that really trying to get that information out of a model, or forcing the model to look through certain cohorts of text is going to give you better information. I do not feel like this is going to be the only aspect that differentiates one quote unquote intelligent person from another. I also feel it would be their approach to things. So, for instance, Um, right now we're in a space where a lot of money is going into these high impact industries like fintech and healthcare, but going to the future, we're also going to see uses of AI in smart crop production, or how to best lay out a city so that we avoid the natural disasters. Now, these are things that maybe AI has not seen before. So it's likely that you will be able to get ideas, but to actually solidify that into a proper plan, to be creative about it, how to implement these things is also something that is still needed from us. Like, we can create scenarios that have not been done before. AI is learning from historical aspect of things that have already been done before. So yes, extracting information is also going to be a skill, but that's not going to be the only differentiator. I feel like we will be forced to think more creatively. We will be forced to create new things. We will be forced to enter new domains, not just the industries that we're already in right now. And we're going to be forced to use this in our daily lives to create an impact. And that's where the differentiator is going to really see some form. So one person might only be able to do prompt engineering, but another person might be not able to do prompt engineering, but take the output from the prompt engineering and create something really different. And these might either coexist or as one job, or they might be separate jobs. So I don't know if that fully answers your
Yeah.
question, but yes, prompt engineering is fast becoming one of those skill sets that you should probably start looking into.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm pretty young, but I at least do remember the whole social media thing coming onto the scene. And we still see it nowadays where companies and businesses and stuff, people who were the kind of firm anti of this new thing, everyone fell behind. So even just locally around here, there's a lot of companies and businesses that have a slightly older generation leading them or owning them who are still a bit like, oh, maybe we should start on the social media front. Well, hey, the boat's kind of sailed, and the people who are, next door to you on the other street who nailed this thing, they are light years ahead of you now already. So, you got to, jump on these trends and these changes within technology and stuff as they come. Would you say it's the same thing with AI then? So, if you've got kind of like a company or a business listening in right now, or people who are still in that mind frame slightly of, I'm going to deny this thing and I don't think I need it and I don't want anything to do with this. I think it's all wrong and blah, blah, blah. All these reasons why not to integrate slightly. Do you think it's going to be the same sort of scenario of the whole social media thing where they just are going to be in second place forever unless they start to learn this thing and start to integrate it at least somewhat?
Right. I think the technology is here to stay, as I mentioned before, and it's seeping into our daily lives. It's going into businesses. And so, where I like to start is, first of all, where is this fear coming from? Try to address that first. Is it coming from a place of not really understanding the technology? And if that's the case, inform yourself, because specifically for this technology, knowledge is very, very important. I cannot stress it enough. A lot of times, I've been asked a question, and it's so simple. Like I'm sometimes really smiling that in a world of AI, where every next article is about AI, people are asking questions like, but at the heart of things, what is really AI? Which means, sometimes we do not understand the fundamental building blocks of this technology. We're not exactly understanding what's going on. And so misinformation, of course, like spreads fear. And on top of that, there are so many articles coming up saying it's going to replace us, it's going to be the end of the world, and no human jobs are going to exist. And so naturally, when you see all of these things, you get apprehensive of the technology. There is distrust in the technology. So find out where the fear is coming from. If you don't understand the tech, then go to a person who's working in the AI space within your domain. The other day, I had a chat with a person who is leading a team in a firm around journalism. And they were really asking me questions like, does this mean that content creation is just not going to be a thing anymore because AI is going to be able to write things for us? And they asked a bunch of other questions. And I think that was the right thing to do, to begin by answering questions, very niche, specific questions that really scare you. with like, in areas where these conversations are happening, have the conversation with an AI expert, have the conversation with a domain expert, and try to put two and two together and see what you feel after that conversation. And the second thing is, there are times when people talk about all of these solutions, you need it, but you have no idea what's going to happen at the end of the day. Like, where is my data going to go? What are the security protocols? Are these people going to get access to information that I don't want to give them access to? What's going to happen to my entire system? And it's too much for me to deal with this right now. I'm just going to not implement this solution. That's another thing that I hear people saying. I don't understand what's going to happen to the data, and I want to make sure that all of it is protected. So data security and data privacy are valid concerns, and you should really ask these questions. And my mantra is very simple: ask questions till you get comfortable with them. I really understand that people are coming from so many different levels of education when it comes to AI. They're coming from different industries where in certain industries, there's a lot of adoption. In certain industries, we haven't even begun to see the innovation, but people are interested in adopting it. So no question is a wrong question in today's world about AI. And ask as many questions as possible. Start getting comfortable with the idea, because this is one of those industries, this is one of those domains where as much as you understand, you are going to start feeling comfortable with the idea. Sometimes, just knowing that this part of the problem, I will not be able to control at all. It's a black box model. I won't be able to control it, but I'm okay with it because this use case doesn't warrant me to understand this part of the problem. That is going to make you feel comfortable. Sometimes it's to say, you know what, I actually don't need an AI solution for this because I'm actually really thinking about causality and I can do it in a simpler way. So you're able to address the need, you're able to see, I understood AI, but I actually don't need it for this use case. And that's going to make you feel comfortable as well. So coming back to the question that you asked, address where your fear is coming from. Start having those conversations about those problems that you're facing and take it from there.
Yeah. Great answer. I think that absolutely hits the nail on the head there. Really spot on. And before we kind of get into the section of the podcast where we're going to kind of go into actionable stuff for people and, getting ahead of the curve slightly and where people can learn more about all this, just last thing I want to ask you too, ever so slightly off topic, but I think what I imagine happening is everyone shifting to this AI stuff in the industry and trying to make profits within there. And I wanted to ask then, so you obviously had kind of a bit of career in finance, as you said, and that industry. And if you were if you had like a load of money right now, if you knew someone with a load of money and they were kind of asking you, what should I do here? Should I invest within AI, which potentially will get super saturated within the near future because everyone's going to be trying to do that? Or should I invest in something evergreen that is anti-AI? So, for example, AI is never going to wash my clothes. So maybe like a brick and mortar store that has the washing machines, or something like, vending machines, or, AI is never going to build you a home. So, real estate. I guess the question is, looking into the future, do you think we should be leaning more into AI for business and profit? Or do you think we should also be looking at kind of like the stuff AI can't touch more? Or is it a great idea to do a mix of both? What do you think?
Again, I'm no investment advisor, so please
Sure.
take my advice with a grain of salt. But here are some thoughts that I have. I feel like investing is a very personal preference that is in part driven by our risk preferences. So if you feel that AI is too risky for you to handle, that could mean two things. You've researched enough and you feel that it's not for you, in which case I wouldn't say you should go and put your money in it, because you're just not going to be comfortable with the idea, even though, there is this idea of the Magnificent Seven, which are tech companies, and mostly all of them are adopting AI in some form or the other, and they've been doing rather well. So, but, maybe it's not something that you are comfortable investing in. Or it could be coming from the fact that you find it too risky because you know nothing about it. If you're in this latter group of people, please go research, understand where the technology is, understand what the future looks like for this technology, what the market size is going to look like for certain things. Now, for instance, as a person who likes to invest in different things, I would say you should always hedge your risks. And you might have certain value companies that you have always been putting funds in, you feel comfortable with, and you should, always keep investing in it because you're comfortable with the idea. It has shown you some good, stable profits in the last couple of years, and you're okay investing in it in the future as well. But then there is also this new side, this new market that is growing so fast. For instance, chip markets or clusters. These are becoming so powerful day by day because to really enable us to innovate with AI solutions, we need the architecture, we need the computational power to back it up. And so there is this whole new segment that's coming up that is helping us power these AI solutions. So that's a big market, according to me, and you should really look into it and see if that's something that you might want to place your bets on. At the same time, there are also certain companies that are considered value companies and also have components of AI in them. So that could also be, somewhat of a middle ground for you. It's a company that has been around for the last 50 years and is also adopting AI, and you feel comfortable taking this much amount of risk only. And so depending upon your risk preferences, I would say it has to be a weighted average of these three things. And you should find your place in
Yeah.
this in
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I agree. I think if you get fearful of stuff like this when you don't know too much about it, so you kind of fear the unknown. It's like, you're not afraid of the dark, you're afraid of what's in there that you can't see.
Right.
And you think about this kind of thing. So for example, if I came on the podcast today, I didn't have a clue who you were, did no research on you, didn't have a clue about the stuff you'd done or the industry and everything, I'd probably be pretty nervous about it because I know I don't know enough and there's a chance of being caught out there, right? But the more you know about the person or what you're doing, the more you know about the industry or whatever it is that you're kind of considering there, the more confident you feel in it. And
Yeah.
therefore that kind of eliminates that fear slightly. So kind of get educated. And I think that leads really well into the next section then too. So as we kind of mentioned, just want to get a bit of a picture of how we can start to learn about this thing then too. But I think the best place to start with that then is, how do you stay ahead of new developments and trends while balancing research and real world applications then? So, how do you keep ahead of it? How do you keep informed? And where do you go to start, getting yourself educated, I guess?
Gosh, very, very broad question. I think the answer to this is very broad. So let's break it down into two parts. I'll tell you where I get my information from. And by no means am I able to keep up with the incessant innovation that is happening in this field. I mean, there are certain times when things have already come up in the last 1 week and I don't know about it because somebody's going to mention this to me. And there are times when I'll get a notification about something that happened in the last 1 hour, and I know about it because again, like there's too much going on. So I think the first thing to tell people is that if you want to be updated about this technology, you will have to research and read a lot. There is no other way, really. You will have to continuously consume information that is coming out about this technology, because there's so much happening every day. You can't just say, I read about this a month ago and that's it. You have to continuously keep reading. Now, you could be a researcher. If you're a researcher, there are journal articles that come up very often. And I see these really cool websites now that actually condense everything into bullet points for you, and you can consume smaller amounts of information. And then if you're interested in a topic, you can click into those and it's going to open up the entire article. So, you could go down the route of really reading the fundamentals or the math behind a certain concept. For instance, if somebody was starting in NLP, I would say go read the paper that made the first transformer model. And that would be something that you would have to actually go through in quite a bit of detail, because as a researcher, you want to make sure that you understand the architecture really well. At the same time, there are a lot of conferences that happen where the effort on your end is a little less. So a lot of AI conferences that I attend are a mix of both technical presentations and business-oriented presentations. And so within these conferences, I can sometimes just sit back and learn about all the new things that people are doing, whether they're doing it from a technical standpoint or whether they're doing it from a business standpoint, but taking AI into account. So I try to speak at conferences, as I mentioned before. I try to attend some really cool international conferences. And that's another good place to, learn about these things. Because our mobile devices are so close to us, I follow a lot of people in the AI world. So I follow people from Google DeepMind, and I'm following people from certain AI startups, people who are notable names in the AI industry. They could be professors or researchers, CEO of companies like NVIDIA or Anthropic. And these people are really bringing their research, their advancements in technology to you in the form of small bites, consumable posts. And so you're already understanding a lot more of what's happening. Again, that is not to say that you need to do a technical deep dive into every single thing. But sometimes just understanding that there is a rush in the market for large language models is enough for you to be a part of a conversation. And people are trying really hard to understand what O1 does, what DeepSeek does, what some other model does. And so if it's a part of your day-to-day routine, you need to go to the white papers, you need to go to the research papers and read more about it. But if it's not, well, then you know that there are 5 or 7 large language models that are competing with each other. And when you have to deploy one of these in your companies, you will have to look at the costs and the API calls and decide which one's the right fit for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there isn't really a shortcut for it. You have to talk with the right people, attend the right conferences, consume some white papers wherever needed. Again, as I mentioned, following people on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, X can be also useful. And then if you're a person who loves to do things, like if you're an AI developer, you could potentially pick up data sets that are available online. I sometimes do it. I just go online, pick up a data set, and I'm trying to solve a problem using that data set. I'll really try to code something out. And one of the best ways to learn is to make mistakes. So when something's going to fail and I'll have to debug it, I'll just understand so much more about it from a coding perspective, from a technical perspective. Yeah, I hope that helps.
That helps a hell of a lot. Actually, you just reminded me of something I watched a while ago. I wonder if you've seen it too, but there was a fantastic documentary I watched a while ago too that I'd love everyone to go and see too. It was now this is testing my memory just slightly, but I know it was Google DeepMind. It may have been called DeepMind, but it was about I believe it was Chinese or Korean game. I think it was called Rush, and they put AI against the world champion Lee Sedol, and they made this whole documentary about it too. I'm wondering, have you seen that? I thought that was incredibly insightful into AI and kind of like how that human versus AI thing looks. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen the documentary, but I know of cases like this where AI agents were asked to play a game against world champions. And it's a really cool concept. Again, I don't know the first game that was made, but I think it might have been either chess or checkers.
Yeah,
But that's what they did again. They actually made a champion, play a game with an AI model that had been trained on 100 or 1,000 strategies, and tried to see the results. And I think the AI model actually defeated the champion. But yeah, these things are really cool to watch. And we're stepping into this world of AI agents now, where you could do so many things at the same time because these agents are talking to each other behind the scenes. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, I think agentic AI or like AI agents would really be something cool for you to explore.
yeah, I agree. Thank you. I think that's probably a pretty good place to start to wrap this up and everything. But I think we just have to know more about you, because one thing I've noticed throughout this whole chat is I've thrown some pretty, big questions at you, and I think it's just so apparent that you're an absolute expert in your field, and I think it's absolutely amazing. I can see why you are exactly where you are. It's really fantastic. But we always have this moment at the end after we get to the end of those 4 questions where we have the shameless plug. So I'd love for you to promote really anything that you're working on, any social media or things that you want people to take a look at too. So whether that's, in the form of your pages and then a book or something, or some piece of AI research that you think everyone should go and have a quick look at, that maybe take 5-10 minutes out of their day to go and see. Just plug anything you want and send the people who've listened in today and are still here to whatever you think they should go take a look at, I guess.
Right. Well, thanks for the opportunity, first of all. And at this point, I just love having conversations about AI with people. So I have a website. You can find me online. I'm not sure if you're going to attach a link, but I'm just going to say it. It's sumedharai.info. And you can check out some of the things that I've done, some of the things that I've consulted on, or some of the talks that I've given. And you can reach out to me and just leave a few sentences for me, and I'll make sure that I get back to you, because I love having these conversations. If there is a problem that you're struggling with, and I can help, I would love to do that. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, and you'll see what I'm up to, or some of the things that I'm excited about. Sometimes I like to post about it. But yes, other than that, I think I'm just very happy to have these conversations with you. I'm really making an effort to have as many conversations as possible with people like you who are really looking to deep dive into the technology and really understand the powerful technology behind it. And I really hope that some of my insights are more useful to some people than just maybe a Google research. And if that's the case and you want to continue the conversation, by all means, get in touch with me. But yeah, I look forward to having these conversations again in the future with you.
Absolutely. I agree. It's one of those ones where I just think it's it doesn't do it justice just to have that one podcast, because everything here is evolving so quickly. It'd be great to have some follow-ups with you. And you were a fantastic guest. I've really enjoyed this talk. And as I mentioned at the start, just super honored to have had you on the show today, and just an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. It is a Sunday today, and I appreciate that you took the time out of your busy schedule to do this, and you were great. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Louis. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and well, enjoy the rest of the Sunday.
I certainly will. Look at that, just right under the hour. Thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 133. And if you'd like to listen to the past episodes, go and have a look at the channel. And if you'd like to listen in for those future ones too, make sure to hit the subscribe button and spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. See you in the next one. Good night. Thanks for watching.